the reason that you're kind of seeing this is kind of goes back to this Bitcoin Maxi mentality that I was joking about kind of in the beginning, which um, I think comes from a good place. I think that you have people who are very, very convicted on Bitcoin's potential and Bitcoin's future and ability to transform the way that we exchange money digitally and all across the world. And so I totally understand why you have this extremely ambitious goal that honestly is the odds are stacked against you. You really need to be like laser focused on the things that really matter in order to succeed.
Welcome to Unraveling Crypto. Today we have Nick with us. Welcome, Nick.
Hey there, how's it going? Happy to be here.
I am so happy to have you here. Briefly before turning the record on, I just want to say I absolutely just love stacks and anyone that comes out of there. And because we also have a lot of love for Bitcoin, of course, like that's where it all really stems from. And I'm really excited to be speaking to you and getting to know you a little bit more. I've seen you on the Twitterverse around so many times, and I'm glad that we were finally able to connect.
Yeah, same here as well, and always good to connect with stacked people as well as some good-natured Bitcoiners, not Bitcoin maxis, of course, but Bitcoiners with an open mind is kind of my mantra.
Yeah, exactly. So we'll get into that because I think a lot of the community, a portion of my community, don't really understand how there's this like weirdness sometimes happening within the crypto space. And but before then, I always love to start the pod with what's one thing that you're grateful for at the moment?
I am grateful for so much right now. I would say above all else, just the team that I get to work with every day. The Gamma team is absolutely just every one of them are rock stars. Really just competent and scrappy in the best way possible, and really just kind of like on top of things and really care and work really hard. I cannot say enough good things. And yeah, I'm truly grateful that I get to wake up every day and
Yeah, I mean, I think that's one of the things that most of us really strive for, to have like a culture where we like a company culture that we just feel inspired by and constantly want to like level up and we're doing good shit. So yeah, that I love
totally.
hearing that. um so another question that I love to ask is, what's your superpower? So that thing that comes to you most naturally, um and probably you've been doing it your whole life.
Oh my goodness, you're really you're starting with some hardballs here. Um, I would say my my curiosity around things. I tend to be a very very curious person. I actually remember my former boss. He actually he passed away, but he asked me like the first question on an interview with me was do you consider yourself a curious person? And I'm like, yeah, definitely. He's like, rate yourself on a scale of 1 to 10, and I'm like 11. And so I definitely think it's you know I, I hate to like talk about myself in like a but I do think that a lot of people can shut out like new ideas or concepts or no matter what it is, it could be something that is like transformative, or it could even be something that's just like silly. And I think just like keeping that open mind and being willing to try new things and kind of staying curious, I think is really important. So I love that about myself.
Yeah, I think that curiosity is just so important, and in this space that we're all in, I feel like we are on the high end of the curiosity spectrum. So I love that superpower. Um, I'd love to get started with a little bit about you and your career journey. So, I've seen like you've been in a spectrum of things, and I want you to talk about it. But I saw that you've worked in sales before, and then in content and marketing and digital marketing, and now you are at Gamma as the COO and co-founder as well. So, walk us through a little bit of your career journey and how you landed here.
Yeah, it's been a fun journey. I yeah, I'd say like, I kind of from quite a young age had been doing you know business oriented things. My family, they have a small business, and so I feel like I picked up some of that from there. I very young actually had a little DJ business that I did. I was 12 years old. Me and two friends kind of started things up, and then I continued that for several years. I was doing like people's weddings and things, which looking back, I'm like, why would you trust like a 14-year-old with your wedding? But I guess maybe there was something there. But that was like a ton of fun, and just kind of gave some like very early like both kind of creative outlet and
Yeah.
kind of business type experience.
Do
Um,
you still DJ?
I don't still DJ. Still love
No. Okay.
music, but yeah, I
Okay.
don't. I mean, I will be completely honest. Like, I was not like making crazy mixes or anything like that. I mean, I was 12, but
Yeah,
it was still like really fun to get the crowd motivated and keep people
of
like having
course.
a fun time. So yeah, that's kind
That's
of
what the
where
DJ is about.
yeah,
Just getting the
yeah,
crowd going.
it was a ton of fun, like being a little bit of like the MC, and probably being like so young maybe made the crowd chuckle a bit, so that kind of works as um so yeah, that's kind of where things began. And then I feel like things just like naturally progressed like through weird and interesting ways, and even all the
Yeah.
way through to Gamma. So funny enough, I was DJing, and my mom was on a bowling league, and they had a Christmas party, and she was like, "Hey, you should come DJ for the Christmas party." And so I did, and then um the owner of the bowling alley was like, saw me there and was like, "Oh, you should DJ here once in a while." And so then I kind of began doing that, and then that turned into like, as I don't want to say outgrew the DJ business, but as I kind of was like, all right, I'm ready for like a more standard job.
Yeah.
I worked there for a bit, and then they actually another company came in and kind of like renovated it and turned it into more of like an event venue. And at that time, I really started getting a little bit more into marketing. I had done their website at the time, and so when the new company came in, they were like, "Oh, you should continue doing our website, and you can help on marketing." And so kind of dipped my toes in the water there a bit, and really enjoyed that. And then after that, I basically dove headfirst into marketing. That's what
Mm.
I kind of went to business school for college, and concentrated in marketing, and then yeah, and then I ended up in kind of like the B2B SaaS world, enterprise software world, and was focused on SEO and paid media, as well as I actually also kind of was wearing a couple hats there, and I was leading up the like the paid customer training offering that they had. So kind of starting that as like a mini business within the business, and scaling that up with a couple of trainers, and So yeah, I don't know, just kind of a lot of different random things that all I've really enjoyed along the way, and gave me some different experiences. And I'd say, when I finally then found Stacks, and the reason that I kind of teamed up with Jamil, for those that don't know, that's my co-founder, founder of Gamma, and CEO, who I think you had on the pod
You've
previously.
had him.
Yep.
Yeah, I think it's
Um,
episode 4. So tune
nice,
into that
nice.
one.
Yeah. So Jamil is amazing. I love working with him, and closest friends now too. So that's amazing. But yeah, he was building some tooling, and I was kind of still had been in this like kind of side graphic designy kind of mindset, and I saw the Stack community, and they were really vibrant and awesome people. And I kind of had the idea of a small NFT project, and it was just good timing because I was like the fifth or the sixth collection that launched on what was STX NFT, now Gamma.
Mhm.
And very soon thereafter, Janelle and I kind of realized that we probably could help each other a bit more by both focusing on that, and not on the NFT project. Not dismissing it, but
Yeah.
yeah. So that's kind of the backstory.
Yeah, I mean, I think when you always look back, you always see the little lessons and how everything just connects. And I think that's really what I saw from like you, and ultimately I think it's inspiring for everyone else, and knowing that there's so much ahead still, and all of this is being created and being built is going to lead to something also bigger. And the journey is really what it's all about, and we're learning so much. And I guess, like, what's your takeaway, or what would you say you would give advice to anyone that's starting out, and maybe you're not there where you want to be necessarily, but like, what would you recommend?
I would say, it's this is one of those things where sometimes I feel like frustrating to hear this, because it's like, anyone is going to say this, but like, just like keep grinding. Like, just kind of like try things and see what sticks, and ideally like have fun in the process. Like, if I
Yeah.
had come into Stacks and I was like, oh, I want to try to like start a business, I don't think I would have succeeded. Or if I did, it wouldn't have been in like, um like, I would have been so focused on like finding what business would be perfect to make a lot of money or something like that, versus just doing something that I found really interesting. And so, I certainly never saw myself running a Web3 company, by any means. But I absolutely love it, and I love what I get to do every day. And as I said, I love the team that I work with, and um, I am just, like, grateful that I just took that plunge and said, like, let me try to do this, and then took the plunge and said, let's go full time into this,
Yeah.
which was scary, but like, I don't regret it at all.
Yeah, I think this is where your superpower comes into. You were just curious and explored, and it led you into something really amazing in your what you're doing. So one of the things that I have absolutely loved that I saw recently from you was this tweet about Gamma growing. And we'll talk about Gamma and what it is and everything that you're building soon. But for me, I think especially, well, even in Web2, it's rare to see companies and high level individuals within the company talk about the long-term vision and its employees the way that you did. And I just want to like say it real quick. You said we hire 100% of our team as proper employees, not contractors. If we can't bet on somebody enough to go all in, they aren't the right fit. And I really love that tweet because, like I said, I don't think it's something that many founders are thinking of, since they're trying to go and build really fast and scale fast. And um, you've been mentioning about Gamma and how incredible everyone is. So, what's your thought process in building that culture, and how do you make sure a company takes care of its employees?
Yeah, it's something that both Jamil and myself, we find like really, really important. I think that like I don't want to at all suggest that like if you don't do it this way, you're doing it the wrong
Yeah.
way, or like there's certainly no judgment there or anything. You know, you have to do what's right for your company, and but I think that you know, I just come from the perspective of like thinking of almost my journey into like I'm gonna go all in on Web3. This is like a new space. This is, you know, I'm taking a big risk going from like a kind of cozy Web2 role where there's a lot of stability and a lot of, you know, and I'm moving into this new territory, and there's already so much uncertainty there, and there's already
Mm,
you know, like you have to be willing to, you know, see market cycles go up and down, and you know, of course things are headed in a positive direction, and I've never felt more sure of that. But you know, you have to be strong in that way to be, you know, to be in this space. And so I think like, you know, for a lot of people joining the space, you know, you already have that in the back of your mind. And now when you come to a company that, you know, it's a startup, it didn't exist like a year ago or something like that.
yeah.
You know, you're taking like even more risk there. And then, you know, startup life in general is one where you're gonna work really hard, and you might work
Yeah.
long hours, and you know, your level of commitment is probably higher than the average, you know, the average job. But you know, you're also like early and part of that team that is like really making a difference. And so, you know, there's of course pros and cons to any role. But I guess what this kind of gets me to is this person is going to be giving like their everything to this role. And they are like trusting you with their livelihoods. Like, you know, we are the company that is allowing them
Yeah.
to put food on the table and like keep a roof over their head. So you know, to bundle all of what I just said with, oh, and by the way, we're just gonna like keep you month to month and we'll let you know what happens, is not like I think it can't possibly like instill that like amazing culture that you want to have, of like these just like go-getters that are like building the future of something really
Yeah.
revolutionary and new. And so I won't keep rambling on this, but yeah, I think like that's the way that I really think about it. And so as a company, you know, we are going to be taking some level of risk by going all in on someone. And that's why startups, especially, but any company would be hesitant to, you know, hire somebody on as, you know, and basically like you're indefinitely with us, and we're, you know, we hope you stay for the long term.
Yeah.
But I think that like there's no replacement for what that basically just does in the back of somebody's mind to make them feel reassured that like, you know, we're on the same team here.
Yeah. And I think, you know, one of the what this I've heard before people say is like like slow to hire and then quick to fire. And I think this is really the opposite sometimes what happens in the space where it's like we need someone really quick and you want to hire them fast, and then it's like a trial. A lot of times I've been hearing that like, okay, we'll do like a trial, and you know, it fits maybe at with certain companies, with certain roles, with projects, but we're in like the wild west sometimes, and seeing somebody else create a different path, it's inspiring, and it also gives, like you said, a little bit of safety in uncertain territories, which is where we are at. um so let's get into gamma. Like, I know a good majority of you listening probably already know what gamma is, but in case you're new, share with us about gamma.
Yeah. So so Gamma is I think most simply put, it's a Bitcoin NFT marketplace. So you can think of it, you know, if you're familiar with OpenSea on Ethereum, Gamma is kind of like the open marketplace on, you know, for Bitcoin NFTs. And you know, up until quite recently, this was through my T-shirt here. I love Stacks. I'm not a Stacks Maxi. I just happen to be wearing wearing this shirt. Um, but uh, but you know, this was initially through Stacks, which is
Yeah.
for anyone not aware, is kind of like a programming layer that settles back onto Bitcoin. And kind of the promise of stacks and what it does is, Bitcoin is quite simple and it can be limited in some of the things that it can do. And so stacks enables some additional functionality on top, and it also enables what any kind of L2 does, like for example, like a Polygon or an Optimism on Ethereum, which is also provides some scalability, allows more transactions to be completed at lower costs, just allows more users to experience the benefits of that base layer. So that's basically where we were until very recently, and I'm sure we'll probably get to it in a little while. But there was recently like a technical unlock on Bitcoin that I will be the first to admit we really didn't see coming. But of course, like as I said, I'm not like a stacks maxi. I still love it. I still think it has the greatest chance of being the right scaling solution for Bitcoin. And so I couldn't be happier that we have our product kind of built out on stacks. But I was extremely excited to hear that the Bitcoin L1 actually now has the ability to do more things natively on it. And it was kind of via a little bit of a loophole that a couple of people discovered. But essentially it allows for you to track individual tiny units of Bitcoin called Satoshis, and add data to them. So add like an image to it or add some text to it. And when you have this little tiny token that is no longer perfectly interchangeable or fungible with something, you now have something that is non-fungible or an NFT. And so that's, I think some people don't like the baggage associated with the word NFT, but really that's all it is. It's basically describing something that isn't perfectly interchangeable with something else.
Yeah. I mean, I think I'm not technical at all. Of course, that's not my background. But I didn't understand ordinals until like I started reading a little bit more about it. And I think for you, can you clarify for people? So there's a Bitcoin and then that gets denominated into sats. And can you just share a little bit more of that again, so that individuals can understand like the difference between like NFTs and now the ordinals or what's being built on Bitcoin?
Yeah, sure. So I mean, as I said, like there's not really that much of a difference at like a definitional kind of level
Correct.
of like it is an NFT, but I think there's a couple things that distinguish it. So yeah, you basically have this you have one Bitcoin, and one Bitcoin can be broken up into tiny little pieces. You can think of it almost like if you have a US dollar, you have $1 and you can break that up into 100 cents. A Satoshi is 1/100 millionth of a Bitcoin. So it's even tinier than a cent, but it's the same concept. And so it's the smallest component part of a Bitcoin. And so there's kind of two things here that allowed for this new explosion of basically NFTs on the Bitcoin L1. And so the first is something called ordinal theory. And I won't get into like super weeds here, and I may be oversimplifying this, but for like non-technical people, ordinal theory basically just proposes that let's start numbering these Satoshis. So let's start at the very first one that was created, through mining, and we'll give it number 1, and then we'll just start counting up. And now we have numbered Satoshis from 1 through however many get mined. Of course, if you're familiar with Bitcoin, you know that gets capped at 21 million Bitcoin, or I think 21 quadrillion Satoshis. And then the second component here is what's called inscriptions or ordinal inscriptions. And so, inscription just means to basically like etch something into something else. And so if you take something like a picture or text or a piece of code or anything, there's some really novel use cases. You can basically take one of those numbered Satoshis and you can say, I'm going to inscribe a picture to this. And now you basically have the two things that are needed to have an NFT. You have you have the actual like metadata, so that's that image, and now you have a way to track and trade it because it's just Bitcoin. You can send it to somebody, or you can hold it, or you can just keep an eye on it. But
Yeah.
that's essentially what this what inscriptions and ordinals are, and I think they are a little bit unique from NFTs elsewhere, even on stacks, because NFTs on other chains go down to like the most basic principle of what an NFT is, which is a record of ownership.
Yeah.
And so that's great, and that's the single most important thing in my opinion is knowing that I own this thing.
Hmm.
But on a lot of other, basically on every other chain, the metadata portion, so that picture, that text, is often stored elsewhere, not directly on the chain. And so what this means is your ownership record probably wouldn't be contested, but the actual image or text or the thing that you like
Mm.
feel like you're buying could vanish someday. And there's means of making this reasonably decentralized, like IPFS or Arweave,
Yep.
but there's no network or protocol as decentralized as Bitcoin itself. And so
Yeah.
with this, you're writing this data right to Bitcoin, and then as soon as you do that, and as soon as that transaction is confirmed, every single Bitcoin node, like 20,000 computers all over the world, all have your copy of that metadata, and it's provably yours.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the key component that I mean, many if you are too new to it, you definitely will get lost in the sauce and not understand it. But it's truly revolutionizing. And I think that like this you said this was unlocked like how like maybe a
Yeah,
few
so
months
so like
ago.
ordinal theory is actually not very new. I think somebody proposed it like as early as 2012 or something like that. Of course,
Mm,
it was built out into kind of some unique ways by Casey. I hope I don't butcher his last name, Rodemore, who basically is kind of like has led this new wave of ordinals and inscriptions. But I think there was really an unlock as a result of the Taproot network upgrade for Bitcoin,
yep.
which took this basically the location that you're putting this inscription data. So like where are you putting your image? It used to
Hmm.
be limited to I think like 80 bytes, which is very small amount of data. Like you could put maybe like a sentence or something, but not much more. And it basically raised this limit to like anything. And so you can now inscribe really as much data as a Bitcoin block can hold, which is still not a ton, to be clear. It's about 4 MB. So your average like JPEG, if you take it on a DSLR, might be 2 times that size. So you still have to be conscious of the size, but it does make it practical to actually store a reasonably good looking image or maybe a chapter of a book or something like that.
Yeah, yeah. I think this is really cool. I mean, we're seeing so much growth and this definitely has unlocked something huge in Bitcoin and there's a lot of controversy with this, of course, and I'd love for you to maybe chat about so for those of you, for context, that may not know too much about this, there's the Bitcoin Maxis, right? They are absolutely like it's all Bitcoin and nothing else exists, and everything is a shitcoin outside of that. And like, how is this kind of why are Bitcoin Maxis not really loving this idea, and why are some excited about it? I guess I'd be curious to get your thoughts and like why is there such a rivalry between like there's the separation.
Yeah. So and apologies, it looked like I was distracted for a second. I was just sending a
Oh, no
quick
worries.
note that because I want to continue this chat for a bit. I think the the reason that you're kind of seeing this is kind of goes back to this Bitcoin Maxi mentality that I was joking about kind of in the beginning, which I think comes from a good place. I think that you have people who are very, very convicted on Bitcoin's potential and Bitcoin's future and ability to transform the way that we exchange money digitally and all across the world. And so I totally understand why you have this extremely ambitious goal that honestly is um, the odds are stacked against you. You really need to be like laser focused on the things that really matter in order to succeed. And I think that in the early days of Bitcoin, um, you probably had a number of people that gave Bitcoin a bad rap. So you had things like Silk Road and illegal drugs being traded and like criminal organizations using it for horrible means. And I think like true Bitcoiners have always advocated against that, of course.
Hmm.
But it is an open and permissionless network, and so it can be done without their approval. And so I think like from from the beginning there was just this desire to like keep Bitcoin pure and keep
Yeah.
Bitcoin moving in the right direction and helping people and transforming things and not being used for bad. And so I think they succeeded in a lot of ways because Bitcoin I don't think has a lot of that baggage anymore. I think if you're not familiar with the crypto space much like in 2023, maybe you still have like random ideas of that. But I think by and large, like even big banks, institutions, others,
Yeah.
they all trust Bitcoin as a store of value and a medium of exchange. I think what happened though over that period is it almost became like an autoimmune disease where you had these people who were fighting off like legitimate bad actors and bad use cases that they shut down any kind of innovation. And so I
Mm.
think you even had I like there's this one photo of some early Bitcoin devs and Vitalik, founder of Ethereum, right in the dead center of that photograph. Like he was a Bitcoiner, probably still is a Bitcoiner,
Yeah.
and was sort of like driven out with a lot of the other more innovative thinkers into other blockchains. And so that's what kind of led to Ethereum being created. And I think with this mindset of, okay, if you don't want us to experiment over here, we'll experiment over here instead. Uh,
Yeah.
and I think that what we're seeing with things like stacks, and that's kind of why I was attracted to stacks, and of course even with ordinals, is okay. We've we've avoided a lot of negative things. We've probably protected a lot of users from being harmed in the process, and that's
Mm.
great. We've also seen a lot of experimentation happen on Ethereum where probably 95% of things don't work, but
Yeah.
5% of things do work and they're revolutionary. And I think NFTs conceptually, kind of started on Bitcoin and kind of migrated to Ethereum. We've now reached a place where, okay, there's some actual practical use cases. People are actually benefiting from the value that they create. And now that you can do something like that right on Bitcoin, uh, I think there's a lot of people, Bitcoiners like myself, that are excited about that and want to see
Yeah.
Bitcoin being used for more than just a store of value and more than just a means of exchange, but also for useful things too.
Yeah.
So I think that the long story short is that you have this group of people who still are a bit nervous that Bitcoin is going to be taken down a path that they're not super sure about, and they
Yeah.
just they want to protect Bitcoin. But I think like it's time to say, okay, we've learned some lessons, and we're ready to push this forward, and we're ready to grow Bitcoin and make it, put it in the hands of more people.
Yeah, and I think what you said too is like if you want to invite the masses to understand a little bit more, you can't really stifle, like you're stifling innovation by also the comments you make, or driving people out, or not being inclusive. At the end of the day, Bitcoin is meant to be accessible for everyone. So yeah, I mean, I just wanted to give a little bit of context for those that may not know, and how this is really, Ordinals is pushing a new path that I don't think anybody really expected so soon.
Yeah.
Um, so kind of like bringing it back to Gamma, I know Gamma has always been really innovative and supportive for artists, and also artists that are not technical. And talk to us a little bit about how you Gamma has made it easy for ordinal inscriptions without having like code or like node. So share what you guys are doing and how this is moving the needle.
Yeah. So creators are like central to the platform. You
Yeah.
know, I think that you see some platforms that kind of like over financialize or over commoditize NFTs, and there may be a time and a place for that, and build cool things like go build whatever you think will be useful to your users. But from our perspective, uh, like just having a home for creators to express themselves and showcase their work, not in this financialized way, but in like a very like special light, where
Hmm.
I can showcase my work and I can, as a creator, not worry about those complicated aspects and just drag and drop my files, and add my details, and then have a place where I can sell my work and collect. I'm sorry, connect with collectors and your buyers. That's kind of like the type of platform that we're aiming for, and um, and so when this L1 kind of ordinal storm took off, we knew we needed to provide a way for creators to take advantage of it just in the same way that we do on L2. And
Hmm.
so the first thing that we launched, and this applies both to the early days of Gamma and also now, the very first thing we launched was a tool for creators. So even before Marketplace, that comes like secondary. The most important thing first is that creators can start to, share their work and get it out there, and have a
Yeah.
really easy way of doing that. And so I think there was a tweet from somebody who said, previously it had taken them like 2 or 3 days to get a Bitcoin full node set up and all this custom software set up. And by the way, I would advocate for people to learn how to run a Bitcoin full node some, but for the average person who is like just trying to dip their toes, it's a
Yeah.
tall ask, and it's not a cheap ask either. And so he tweeted that what did take 2 or 3 days, he was able to do in like 38 seconds on Gamma. And so I think like that's the kind of experience that we want to give to creators. Just
Yeah.
easy, like focus on what you do best. Don't worry about coding. And then I think next after that is really making sure that, okay, we have creator tools in place. Then we can focus on giving a marketplace experience that people have come to expect, but also that is trustless and safe, and allows collectors to then sell their work on the secondary.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's when I look at Gamma, and when we are talking about Gamma, it's like what comes out. It's like always supporting and elevating and amplifying the creators and making it really easy. And I think that's exactly what we need in the space. Because, like you said, you can hone in on your craft, and I think it's important to know a little bit of everything. But ultimately, like when you want to put your art out there, when you want to create something, and you don't have the skill set to run a full node or any of that, then eh, this is where Gamma really shines its light. Um, I guess like I want to pivot to, it might be this, but like, what are you really excited about the space, and what's your outlook for the next couple of weeks, even months?
Yeah, no, it's funny you say a couple weeks. That probably is the right time scale because this is
Yeah.
like it's changing every single day. We launched our Ordinals inscription service like basically about 1 month ago, which is absolutely nuts. It feels like it's been like 10 years. But
Yep.
in the best way possible. I think what I'm most excited about is just seeing what creators create. Like
Mm,
there's like of course I'm always excited to see fine artists, putting their work, and I'm always interested to see, communities launching new ways to engage with their communities and using this as the tool to do so. But I think we've only scratched the surface of basically like using this new medium to its maximum potential. So I'll give one example of that. We've seen people inscribing like snippets of code. I gave this example a little earlier, and what's really cool about that is you have, things like GitHub that have open source repositories of code that anyone can use to as part of their application or their tool that they're building. And but ultimately they are housed in a central location. But by
yeah.
providing an open source software on an inscription, you've now made it like truly open source. Like now you have 20,000 computers that all have a copy of it. Anyone can use it. You could associate a license directly to it so that there's no confusion around that. And now what you could do is you could actually have many different pieces of code, and you could patch them together into, an application. And so I think there's like that's just one example. Some of them may be more art focused, some of them may be more like historical and cultural significant, tied,
Yep.
or some may be more tech focused like this. But I think like this concept of permanence that Bitcoin uniquely provides really opens the door for people to want to try new things that they've never felt compelled to try elsewhere.
Yeah, I'm also really excited to for what's to come, and there's a lot of support in the space for this too, and I think that even makes it all that like even though the outside and economic world, financial world, macro is not looking good, when you like zoom in into this microcosm, you find a lot of like innovation and hope and creativity. And I think that's what's needed, especially when life isn't going so hot for so many
Yeah.
people. But all right, so maybe what's one thing, we're gonna wrap up soon, but like maybe what's one thing that you would say um, still needs a lot of growth in the space, and what you're looking forward for that to kind
Yeah.
of find a solution?
Yeah, I think one thing I'd say there's probably two, and they're kind of related, but I'd say one is just better onboarding. People always talk about onboarding the first billion users to Web3, and we are so far off. Like, a from just a number of users perspective, but also like we need to work on, and that's everyone. That includes Gamma. We need to work on better experiences that the average person, can feel comfortable kind of coming into the space and not feel afraid that they're going to misstep and have some protections in place
Yeah.
to try to prevent that from happening. So I'd say that's kind of like overarching the second point, which is I think in like the short term, what I really am looking forward to seeing is just better like base level infrastructure that protects users. And so
Ooh.
think you have and I'm not faulting anyone for that because to be clear, 1 month ago this space barely existed, and so it's only reasonable to give like teams a couple months to get up to
Yeah.
speed. But I think like for example, the very early wallet solutions, you could have a situation where you send out the inscription that you just purchased and by accident without realizing what you're doing. And that's obviously not a good
Mm,
situation. You have
yeah.
wallet providers like Xverse and Hero in the stack space and others outside the space that are building basically that core infrastructure, excuse me, that makes sure that that is not going to happen. And I think on like the marketplace side, this is something that we've taken very seriously. And actually the reason why we've not yet launched our marketplace is because we need to do at least two things. Number one, we need to make sure that it kind of follows in the principles of Web3 and Bitcoin, especially, of being as trust minimized as possible. So, you of course need to rely on Gamma to show you accurate data on the interface. But apart from that, you should be able to see a transaction that we send to your wallet, and you should be able to confirm whether, yourself, you should be able to independently verify that we're not doing anything funny. And I think that
Mm.
some early platforms, probably with the best of intentions, to be clear, like just in trying to ship fast and get something out there that people can begin using, made some sacrifices there in terms of maybe storing private keys in a way that isn't best practice, or
Yeah.
maybe leveraging things like bridges from Ethereum, which again, like, it's great to use tried and true tech, but anytime you involve things like bridges, you're adding layers of risk that a lot of users don't realize they're kind of signing up for.
Yeah.
And so I think that it's really important that platforms are either very explicit that this is happening, which some of them certainly are, or trying to do things directly on Bitcoin in a trustless or very trust minimized way, and then kind of also making sure that it's safe to use. And that comes into the second thing that we're making sure, which is, I think we have some really strong developers. I think they're extremely competent, but when you're moving at the speed of light, you're bound to have the potential of making mistakes.
Yeah.
And so, we're making sure that we have independent auditors review our solution. That's actually the reason why we've not shipped yet. We're basically ready to go, but we're just getting it audited by two external parties to make sure that it is safe for users. Of course, you can never eliminate 100% of the risk, but we're trying to do
Yeah.
much as we can to make sure that it's safe for users.
Yeah, wow. I love that you just kind of like, these are the problems, but there are some solutions around the corner. And yeah, I think that Gamma has always been that. And I'm just excited to see, like you said, there's a lot of things that, especially like as a user, you don't know and you don't know what's happening. And this is what could turn off a lot of people from continuing to use something. So yeah, the safeties and the infrastructures are so important. But as we are wrapping up, what do you do outside of tech, outside of Web3 and Gamma? What do you do for
Yeah.
fun?
I feel like I have less of that lately. Although I love my job, so I'm not complaining about
Yeah.
it. I like just hanging out with friends and family, and traveling, and going on drives. I love to drive,
Yeah.
and hiking when I can. Although that usually eats up a day, and I haven't afforded myself the ability to do that lately. But
Not yet.
yeah, so I think yeah, just trying to like get out and touch grass, so to speak. So that's definitely something.
Yeah, I mean, like I agree. Sometimes you're so excited about something, you're all in 100%, and then you kind of are reminded, yeah, you should go outside and see people outside of this the
Yeah.
screens. But is there anything else that you would love to share or give us any insight before we wrap up with this lightning round?
No, yeah, I think we talked about a lot of fun topics, and I mean, I'm always reachable if people have questions, but I think that's the core stuff.
Yeah, cool. So I call this a lightning round. It's just a series of questions that I ask. And the whole idea is for you to answer them without thinking too much about it. So as fast
Cool.
as you can. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Okay. So what's your favorite book?
My goodness, I have done not much reading lately because I've been focused on building. But the most recent book that I read that I really enjoyed was Fundraising by Ryan Breslow, about startup investing.
Yeah. Okay. This is cool. So, your go-to drink?
I like mojitos.
Ooh, one thing you cannot stand.
Cocky people.
What's your favorite show?
um, there's so many, but I would say right now, The Last of Us.
Ooh, I haven't seen it yet. Okay. One piece of advice that you want to share with the world right now.
Um, this is so unoriginal, but I do fully believe it. This is like my pinned tweet, and to be clear, it's a reminder to myself as much as it's like I struggle with this is why like you cannot possibly care about everything, so just like pick a
Mm,
few things and go all in on those things. I think like that's the detriment of the superpower of being so curious
yeah.
is basically like trying too many things, and it's like just pick a few things and like and go all in.
Yeah. Oh my God. I fall into that trap all the time. Your favorite place on earth?
um I'm gonna cop out and just say home.
And what's one thing that you really love about yourself right now?
um love about myself. You're hitting me with these like making me talk about myself. I would say I like that I am keeping myself grounded and remaining like appreciative of everything that I have, because I have so much to be appreciative for, so and grateful for. So I love that I'm like staying true to that, because that's important to me.
Yeah. Well, Nick, it's been an absolute pleasure speaking to you. You're like a wealth of knowledge. I learned so much, and I know like the community is going to really appreciate your takes, your insights, and like really teachings. I'll link your contact info in the show notes for everyone to just reach out and connect and hang out with you. But other than that, I appreciate you and thank you for coming on.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, well, if you guys enjoyed this conversation, go ahead and share to someone you love, comment, like, review. All of that really helps the pod grow and just have more cool guests on.
See you later.